Culturally Conscious Curriculum, The Fight Between State and Federal Policies in Tucson by Dr. Ann Blankenship and Dr. Leslie Locke.
Originally, we were compelled to write this case because it was an issue that I kind of became aware of during my doctoral program at the University of Georgia. Some documentary filmmakers came to do a screening of the film Precious Knowledge that documented the early stages of this protest process in Tucson, Arizona, regarding the Mexican American Studies program and what's happened to it over the last 10 years or so. The documentary was really moving, and as a scholar of desegregation and integration policies, I was really interested in what was going on with desegregation efforts in Tucson, Arizona. I was really surprised to find that they are actually still under a desegregation order from Brown versus Board of Education. In that part of the country, it was particularly surprising. I live in the South where there are still a number of counties that are under Brown versus Board of Education orders, but to have one in the Southwest and such a big school district was really different. So I became interested in it. I did some research. I looked into kind of the legal timeline of events.
So my research area past has dealt with generally the issues kids from marginalized groups deal with inside K-12 school systems and specifically affect Latinos. And so I had not heard of this this problem going on in Tucson, and when Annie said, "Oh, you need to watch this video," I brought it home and watched it, and I just couldn't even believe that this was going on. In terms of the policy, what we found was that really nobody was talking about the temporary lifting of the federal desegregation order that allowed kind of all of this really unusual stuff to happen inside of, Arizona and then Tucson Unified School District, which then impacted the to bring the lifting of that desegregation order, and then what happened as a result of it.
As we were writing the paper, I was familiar with JCEL and how great of a resource that was, and we both kind of took a look at some of the cases that you have published and thought that this case was particularly appropriate because so much is going on here. There are legal issues and political issues and policy issues and tons of leadership challenges. And the stakeholders in this particular case, I think, are all kind of exaggerated caricatures of what most people experience, particularly with regard to the politicians, because they don't just take a stance. They really go all the way with it. They take a stance and then turn it into like a vengeful mission, which I think is really taking it to that next level. So you have politicians that are really making it personal and going to blows to pass certain legislation, and you have students who are protesting and actually engaging in walkouts and sit-ins and traditional kinds of protests. And then in the middle you have district level leadership that are kind of stuck between wanting to serve their constituents, which are a majority Mexican American, and wanting to retain their funding from the state. So we thought that this particular quandary was a really interesting leadership situation that could be explored in some really interesting activities.
We piloted one of our exercises here in a class this summer, and we were both really pleased because the students, first of all, just like I think, well, myself, I can speak for myself, I was kind of blown away when I saw the video. Like, this can't even be real, and how come I haven't heard of it? And so we first had the students watch the Precious Knowledge video, and their minds were sort of blown that this is actually happening. And then read the case, and then they got a little bit more depth and understanding of sort of the timeline and what went on and why these things were going on. And then we divided them into stakeholder groups and had them present to a mock school board their positions. And so they were very passionate. It was a very interesting few days in class, sort of dealing with this case. So I was happy that we were able to pilot it and see how it actually worked. But I think what's unique about our paper too is that not only do we have short activities, suggested activities, but we also provided some guidance in terms of how this could be used in terms of a major project or a teaching unit. I mean, it really could be stretched out throughout the semester.
At the end, in the teaching notes, we give some opportunity for short discussion questions, but we also provide, several different options for, like, all right, here is a one-day kind of, here you go activity, and you wrap it up in a bow with some discussion. But there are also some other options of, extending that for a few classes, making it the major project for the semester. And the exciting thing about it is that students are asked to step in the place of stakeholders. And all the stakeholder positions are leadership positions, but they all hold a very different perspective. So some of the students will take the perspective of the superintendent. Some will be parents of students in the district that are also community activists, and some will be principals. And I think each stakeholder group really has its own position, its own needs, its own desires for how this situation should play out. And having them come up with a well-articulated plan and present that to a mock school board, I think really helps them understand how the situation might play out in real life.